Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast. And oh my goodness, finally being able to get this lady on to the podcast because she is absolutely crazily busy being in hospitality at this time, as you can imagine, taking on many, many roles. So let's hit record and let's proceed with today's interview. Debbie Dickson is the marketing manager at the Ary Toukley. Now, Toukley, for my overseas listeners, is Central Coast, about a couple of hours north of Sydney. Beautiful area, well established, but it's that surfing laid back lifestyle. It's a nice, comfortable place to live, and Toukley is a really pretty place. A role she has proudly held for over 12 years. She leads the club's marketing strategy and oversees entertainment, promotions and events with a strong focus on community engagement, which she considers central to her work. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. She's played a pivotal role in raising the club's profile through a dynamic entertainment program, and in 2021 that led the successful rebrand from Club Toukley to the Ary, modernising its image and appealing to a younger audience. In 2023, Debbie received a prestigious bursary from CMA, which is the Club Managers Association, enabling her to travel to the USA with 7 fellow CEOs and club managers for a food, beverage, and marketing tour. Yes, I've been on one of those. They're fantastic. She was also invited to attend the CMA Food and Wine Tour in Tasmania in 2025. So it's, even though she's a busy woman, it's taking the time to explore about what else is out there and who else can we learn from. And what can we share with others as well. Her commitment to community initiatives is long-standing. In 2022, she participated in the Cancer Council Stars of the Coast, raising over $30,000 and earning the highest fundraiser honour. Despite no prior dance experience, her performance for 400 plus attendees demonstrated courage, resilience, and personal growth. Debbie serves as Vice Chair of the statewide Clubs for Community United Against Violence Committee, formed in 2023 to lead the club industry in proactive domestic and family violence prevention. Under her guidance, the Ary Toukley has implemented a comprehensive domestic violence action plan, engaging with local initiatives, supporting survivors, partnering with frontline organisations, and investing in staff education. The Purple Shirt Initiative, held every Friday, visibly demonstrates the club's commitment with staff wearing purple in solidarity for survivors and with survivors. Driven by compassion, collaboration, and a belief in community impact, Debbie Dickson continues to champion initiatives that empower people, strengthen partnerships, and foster a safer future for all. Welcome, Debbie. Thank you so much for joining us today at this busy time of the year.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm very honoured.
And it is an important time to talk about domestic violence because, at this time, and it doesn't matter what time of the year is, we see it, we read about it in our news, on the news, on social media, but also on television. And it's where we, how is it, what can we do, not just as individuals, but as teams. And we've seen the registered club industry really step up in the last 2 years. And, it's wonderful. And that's what we're going to talk about today is how you have really driven this, and particularly at the Ary at Toukley, but also that whole Central Coast area. So, you've taken the Ary, on this powerful stance on domestic and family violence prevention, Debbie. Can you share what initially motivated the club and you personally, and to step into this space with such commitment and purpose?
So back in 2017, Michelle, we were actually contacted by Clubs New South Wales. They were actually contacted by New South Wales Police. They'd identified the 5 domestic violence hotspots in the state for the highest incident reports. And alarmingly, we were in the top 5. We're actually number 3 at that stage. And more recently and shockingly, we're at number 1. So what they wanted from clubs in those areas was to display support material for victim survivors on the backs of toilet doors and on in-house TV screens, with links to, support organisations in the community. So it was then, taken by surprise and shock that I sat down with our CEO and I said, we're the biggest organisation in the community. We've got a real issue. This is in our backyard. This is our people, our staff, our members, our family, our friends, the people that service at the shops. This is happening in our backyard. And we've got a responsibility to do more than just stick up a poster.
Yeah.
So we set out on a plan to, first of all, educate our staff. We needed to make our staff aware before we embraced any other initiatives of why we were doing what we were doing. So it was to create awareness with our staffs and educate them firstly on what domestic violence is. So we actually connected with a local domestic violence expert, Danielle Habib, who's had so much experience in this space across supporting police in their DV units, education, support services. And we sat down with her and we said, how can we get involved? First step was staff training, so she came in and trained our staff. We then invited all the Central Coast Club CEOs, their HR managers, marketing managers in. We held the same presentation for them, and there was local police involved in that as well. So we funded and hosted that. We also then created a radio campaign with those club CEOs. As pillars of the community, they are leaders of our community, and they were all men at the time, and I think they still are. And we recorded messages standing up and speaking out against domestic violence as a collective. So that rolled around during the 16 days of activism back in 2017. So education and awareness. We also made a commitment to participate in community activities such as the walk against what was known back then as the White Ribbon Walk with the White Ribbon Committee. So a very public stance where we got our directors and our staff together and walked behind our club banner to show that we wanted to be part of the solution and we were standing up and speaking out. And we also put resources on the backs of toilet doors, so information gateway, for support services. So often, domestic violence is a very private issue, and people aren't often willing to speak about it. But subtly, if we can provide those gateways to support resources, that's what we did. Put up the signs on the backs of toilet doors and had it rolling around. We had the white ribbon, which was white ribbon back then, on our doorways, so people coming in knew our stance on domestic and family violence. So that's how we got involved. And then it sort of rolled on. We shut down with COVID and the COVID chaos. And when we reopened, it was, just getting back to business. And the wheels sort of fell off in where we were at with our DV initiatives. And it wasn't until it was early last year, and it was a Sunday night. It was pouring rain. And one of our young male duty managers called me at 9:30 on a Sunday night, and he said, Deb, I've got this lady. She's just came to me. She's fled her home. She's distressed. She's distraught. She's got nowhere to go. What do I do? And so I sprang into action and thought, the wheels have fallen off. So I contacted our DV expert, got the support numbers, was able to, pass that through to our duty manager, made sure she had access to a phone, made sure she had a cup of tea, something to eat, and she was able to access what she needed on that night. So then it started discussions about how we get back on track, create a domestic violence action plan and do more and get back to and do it better. So, the issue didn't go away in COVID. It probably escalated. It did escalate. We know that. It was probably just underreported. And so that's where we picked up where we left off last year.
My goodness, when you think about it, 8 years ago, you were really, when I say ahead of our time, we've talked about domestic violence for decades, but really 8 years ago, taking that stance and being seen in the community. And you're right, it's the numbers are shocking. And, as I said at the start, it's such a beautiful area up there on the Central Coast, and for that to be happening and just show it doesn't matter what area you're in, it doesn't matter whether, what the socio-economic situation is. It's there. It's just hidden more in some places. So being that real, making a stand, as you said, educating the staff is really, really key because, how many staff members have you got?
About 80.
Yes, you've got 8. And then how many members in the club?
18,000.
So 18,000. So if you think about, and then you duplicate, at those 18,000, they'll be bringing somebody else. So you got 36,000. Then they've got children. Then it goes into the hundreds of thousands.
Absolutely.
And it's just that conversation, isn't it? But as you rightly said, during COVID, we saw it absolutely escalate, because they were, in situations, they were trapped, they couldn't get out. It happened in situations that hadn't occurred before. But just for your duty manager to turn around and to ring
Mm,
you on
mm,
that night, and that lady had obviously remembered and had thought, well, I've got nowhere else to go,
absolutely.
and just to
Mm,
go, this was a moment in time that really changed everything. And so, that's where I'd like to discuss now, from that moment she walked in that door to where you are now. You've put so many plans in place, and the
mm,
implementation of the Ary Toukley's domestic violence and family violence plan, and how
mm,
that's working through. And one of those is Purple Shirt Friday. Now we hear about that, and I know some other clubs do it, but
yeah.
how has it really made a change to your team and the staff, on a Friday?
Mm. So, firstly, to address the action plan, so we formulated what we had been doing prior to COVID. We
Mm,
put it on paper and we made a real commitment. It was adopted by the board. And I must say that we've got a very supportive board and CEO, and that's essential. They need to be
yeah,
on board. They attended our education and training sessions as well.
mm,
So, it comes from the top down.
definitely.
So in that DV action plan is, as I mentioned before, essential and crucial, and first and foremost before any clubs take action is educating the staff. So
Mm,
we just held 3 education sessions, training sessions, paid training sessions with our DV expert, and we invited some local DV support organisations in to talk about the work they do in the community,
mm,
because we do fundraise for them. We have our EAP program for staff, because we know 1 in 4 women have been affected. So they're our colleagues, they're our
yes.
people working beside. So we
Mm,
have that program in place. We still commit to the walk. So we just recently co-hosted with the Central Coast Domestic Violence Council the walk against domestic violence, which started at a local car park in Toukley and walked down to the Ary, and we even had David Harris speak as a
wow.
guest there. Had a
Mm,
really carry on from Clubs New South Wales. We had our local commander in charge of the DV unit, and some other guest speakers there as well. So it was very well attended. So committing to that physical activity and stance, it was very powerful.
yes.
We also still have the support services, leaflets at reception on the backs toilet doors. We stock the Esca bags, which is an essential kit for
Mm,
people fleeing domestic violence, everything essential they may need, from deodorant, toothpaste, shampoos. And there's even a children's pack that carries a nappy and a little children's toy. So, having that available, and we have given a few of those out. Um,
mm,
we also support education primary prevention programs in schools. So we've committed to a 3-year program with Catholic Care, delivered by our DV expert that we've aligned with and got a
right.
great relationship with. So that's at one of our local high schools, and namely, it was alarming too, because that high school, which isn't our closest high school, I might add, but it's within our catchment area, has the highest out of home rate for teenagers in the state, which
Wow.
was alarming. It's the school both my boys went to, so I was so alarmed to hear that.
Mm,
But that program is delivered to children or adults, young adults at sort of age 15, 14, 15,
mm,
at that year 9 level, when they're learning, when they're getting into relationships and learning
yes.
what is healthy and what is not and what's
Mm,
expected. And they divide the females and the males because they talk openly and freely. So that education in schools, is something we want to
mm,
support, the primary prevention, and then obviously more to the visibility to the purple shirts. So in October we rolled out our purple shirts, and this is something I just absolutely love this project, and you have mentioned that other clubs are involved. I think we've got over 22 clubs statewide
mm,
involved, and I will give credit to Cherry Street Sports and
yes.
Terry Sheen, who's an amazing leader in our industry and a good
Mm,
friend of mine, and he rolled it out and has won awards for his
yes.
initiative. And we've actually adapted that shirt so it now carries the 1-800 respect number. So if staff are wearing it and they don't or can't remember what they've learnt, at least it's
Mm,
an information gateway to
yes.
someone that might be looking for support. They can take a photo and get connected
Mm,
with support services in their local community. The shirt also now carries 3 of our industry association logos. So Clubs New South Wales, RSL and Services Clubs, and Leagues Club Australia. So that all those associations are on board and supporting our stance and our initiatives and
yes.
our drive for change. So
Mm,
the staff have just embraced it so well. I get teary when I talk about it, but after the staff training, we had the staff training. We had 18-year-olds to 65-year-olds involved, and everyone was forthcoming with their own stories, with
mm,
getting involved, with talking about their own ideas around healthy relationships and what is DV.
mm,
It was really heartwarming to see our staff embracing it, and I had several staff members stop me afterwards, and this is what makes me teary. Is say that, you know, how proud they are to work at an organisation that's taking this stance and really trying to drive change. You know, we're not just, and this isn't less important, but we're not just sponsoring local sporting organisations.
Yes.
We're really trying to create social change and build a safer community. So our staff are very proud that we are doing this, and very proud to put on that purple shirt every Friday.
Which is so important. I really love that idea. It's that education back at school, and
Mm,
it's impacting. And I mean, oh my gosh, for you to say it's the highest in the state,
mm,
that school, I mean, that is just, oh, because you just think how many of those children are being impacted day by day, but how many have been in the past that nobody even thought about or didn't even think. And I think that's the other part of this education piece. So there you are educating your staff, but those staff members could well have been the children of domestic family violence, but also could be, you know, going through it themselves or even be the perpetrators. And I know we've discussed
mm,
this, you know, when we've looked
absolutely.
at other work with Club New South Wales, is, you know, it's not just about the blame, it's about that education of how can we stop it, and then how can we report it, and how can we make people feel safe, and but know
Mm,
that there is somebody there when they need it. And that's what that key is, isn't it? It's just you can't force them into making these changes, but it's
no.
getting them to know that there is somewhere that they can go if they choose to. Just having that open door, like that lady did when coming to the community
Absolutely,
manager. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And even this year, I think I've personally assisted two other ladies,
Right.
and I know our staff have assisted other people. You know, on weekends with young people. There was an issue. A young lady, she'd gone to a friend's house. He tried to force himself on her. She was very scared. Was able to flee. Came to our club, because let's face it, clubs are open later than most other
Yes. Yeah.
organisations, except for maybe service stations. We're the
Mm,
only club that's open for people.
mm,
So, you know, surrounding yourself with people is a safety zone. We've got security on, you know,
mm.
we're well lit and that kind of thing. So she fled to us. She had no money. She wasn't a member. She was scared. We were able to get her a cab to safety. So, and just to say, like, we do live and breathe our DV policy. We had another
Yes.
elderly gentleman just recently in the lounge. Another patron who was actually our ex-chairman had overheard this gentleman talking abusively to his wife,
Mm.
alerted me to the fact. I brought down our ops manager. I took the lady aside, had a chat to her. I had he had a chat to the gentleman, and he was told it was none of his business.
Mm.
And our ops manager said, "Well, it is our business because we
Mm.
don't stand for, you know,
Mm.
domestic and family violence. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." So we are living and breathing, you
Yes.
know, what's on paper daily.
Mm. And as you said, it transcends all age groups. You
It
know, we
does.
sort of think, oh well, you know, they're older people, but no, it could have been something that's been hidden there for quite a while. And you know, particularly, I was watching the news the other night. They're saying the rates of homeless women is
Mm,
it's just growing by a huge amount of numbers every day, and that's just horrific. Particularly as they get to that older age where perhaps they've retired from work or aren't, you know, they're being, you know, the carer in the home and don't have the skill sets that they feel they can go for a job. They've got nowhere to go, you
that's
know.
right.
So and that's
Yeah.
where it's really hard. But you're right, you know, a club is open, you know, where the RE is, you've got a lot of residential as well around you. So it's part of the community. It's
Mm,
and it's a safe place because yeah, well lit, it's staffed well, you've got security, you've got people there that
mm,
care about it. So and the purple
mm.
shirts do look amazing. And yes, I had Terry on early this year, and just the most amazing person who just keeps giving to the
It
community,
is.
which is phenomenal. So there you are at the RE, but you've also, you know, personally even gone into more of it with this strong purpose as you serve
Mm,
as the vice chair of the Clubs for Community United
mm,
Against Violence Committee. What's the
mm,
committee's broader vision, and how can
mm,
other clubs and hospitality venues get involved in driving real change, Debbie?
mm. So our ultimate vision is to create communities free from domestic and family violence. There's
Mm,
lots of work to do between now and then, but
yes.
that's the broadest ultimate vision. We aim to advocate, educate, and collaborate together. So when we were brought together before this committee was formed, Arella Carrion, who was then with Mounties Group, who's a superstar, a superwoman, and a good friend of mine, brought us together at a Catalyst for Change forum down at Dalton House last year. And it was just after that young time duty manager had called me, so timing was perfect.
Yes.
And in that room was ministers, the DV sector, club managers, predominantly around Sydney, the big clubs in Sydney, a couple of regional like Terry and ourselves who had already been active in this space. And we sat in a room and we shared what we were already doing in the DV space. And so many clubs are doing such amazing things, either in education, participating in walks or supporting refuge shelters, emergency shelters, and they're working together already.
Yes.
But a lot of us were working in silos. So it was a conversation over lunch when I said to her, really, what are you going to do with all this information? And she said, I don't know. I said, we need a committee, a statewide committee. So we are all united. We reach 14,000 members statewide. So together we have a super strong voice and we can create change. We have that connection. So clubs can get on board. We meet online bi-monthly. We are looking at having 2 face-to-face meetings next year, so February and then later in the year around the AGE, which will be our AGM. We've just moved to become an incorporated association, so that'll ensure the longevity of the committee and the work we're doing. So the ultimate goal is we're just building a website that's about to be launched. Aurélia's working on training programs with Kemp's RSL and Learning for Good, and that training program will be available to all clubs. So ultimately, the vision is that every club gets on board, they educate their staff. They have resources available and they stand with their communities and step up and speak out against domestic and family violence. And we work together as a whole and a collective because, and that website will be a resource point for training information, events, DV policies, templates, the resources within communities. It will be holistic and all clubs will have access to that, whether they've got a club of 1,000 members or 100,000 members. So.
Yes, yeah. And look, I was at that function at Dalton House and I remember, we got to the end and yes, we had, people from Bathurst, we had everybody, stepping up and talking about what they were doing. But at the end, Dale Hunt, who, the CEO at Mounties, got up and said, well, what are you actually going to do about it? We've had a nice little, afternoon here chatting, and that really just nailed it to the wall when I think, you and many others had already started. But as you rightly said, Debbie, we've got to start a committee because we're doing everything as in silos and then let's come together. I love the idea of the website. I think it's really important to know who those people are in our areas that we can go to, in the clubs.
Absolutely.
Yes, we've got the clubs, but where are those? Well, what's that women's shelter? Or even though we don't have, naturally don't have their addresses, but who can they reach out to? What other organizations can they connect with? That club, because I know that was a lot of the questions. Well, who do we go to in our area? Like who?
Absolutely.
And yeah, it was that education piece. So I think, having that website will certainly be ideals for everybody to go to, and have a look at that. You've also had some fun in dancing. Audience, we've got a program, and I think it's a global program, Dancing with the Stars, where we usually have, well-known celebrities dancing with others. And actually, we just had Steve Irwin's son just win the big one in the US, who's actually a really great role model for young guys too. And so there was a lot of this, well, okay, how can we create this mini version of Dancing with the Stars, raise money for a charity, but really to bring it home. So there you were with Stars of the Coast. And to your credit, you earn, you raised over $30,000, which is phenomenal. I'm sure you had some fun times. So I'd love to hear some, were there some fun stories in that? Because as you said, you weren't the, prima donna, ballerina. So how did that come together? Having your own courage in front of 400 plus people, even the butchers and the newsagents, people that you knew. But how do you balance these roles as well? And what lessons can hospitality leaders from learn from your approach as well, Debbie?
Look, I think, Michelle, I see leadership as being a real privilege. And I think with our position and our profile in the community, when we have these opportunities, we need to embrace them.
Yes.
And the causes are bigger than our own fear. And let me tell you, I was very, very scared. And I did say no the first time they asked me. So Stars on the Coast, Central Coast has been going for about 11 years. They asked me in the second year. At the time, I had a lot going on in my personal life, so couldn't commit to it. When they asked me again in 2022, I knew I couldn't say no. And they did say if I said no, they'd keep asking until I said yes. So I had no choice. And I just knew that I had, like, it terrified me. I've never danced a choreographed routine, maybe after a few shardies on the dance floor, but never a choreographed routine. So here I was thinking, yes, I'll sign up. I can do this. Well, the duck palm on top and, paddling madly underneath, and turned up to my first dance lesson. It was with a female partner, and I got the genre of 80s. So I'm thinking I'm going to do a salsa with a sexy man. And it was so far removed from that, but it was an amazing experience. I had an amazing dance partner in Lauren.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, well, you can't correct any of my, mistakes because we're not partner dancing. I've got to mimic what you're doing.
Oh, right. Okay.
So
So
it
yes, you
was
were a duo.
it was added pressure, but we did have two male partners that we had to dance with. I even went to I choreographed the end of the dance. So, like, I really stepped outside of
Yeah.
my comfort zone. We were very challenged too because it was in the COVID chaos where if you had a family member with COVID, you weren't allowed to go out, you had to
Yeah.
isolate. So, we had many dance rehearsals
Mm.
cancelled. So here I was home in my lounge room with the, recording on the TV, practicing. And I must say, the first dance routine, the first rehearsal, I nearly cried because I'm like, how am I going to learn a routine? I can't learn one move. But I just had to keep going because I had made a commitment. And
Yeah.
remembering the cause was bigger than my own fear.
Yeah.
And, as we know, when we step outside our comfort zone, that's when personal growth happens. So it was as rewarding for me personally, that personal growth to, get up to learn this. It was a very complicated, fast moving dance
Yes.
routine to Prince Kiss.
Mm.
And it was super fun. It was super fun. And I made some beautiful friends along the way and connections that I'm still friends with. So they're like firefighters and business owners and another marketing manager from Mingara, or marketing communications group manager. And we're still really good friends today. So it was a great connection with community leaders, as
Yes.
well as,
Mm.
raising over $30,000. And collectively we raised hundreds of thousands of dollars together. So we were a very successful dance troupe as such. And it was petrifying but exhilarating and extremely rewarding. So I suppose going back to that, leadership as a privilege, is that, we've got to use that for good. We've got to
Yes.
take on these challenges. And our industry is full of very, very passionate people. And that has come to light no more than through the Clubs for Community Committee. So
Yes.
many of, the committee members who have now become friends are passionate individuals, and they do over and above what's required from their role, and so much in their own time, but they
Yes.
have the support of their employers.
Mm.
But so much of it is, they're embracing it, and they're driving it for personal reasons because, of course, they have the power and the profile and the ability to do
Yes.
so with their connections. So I think that's what it's about, taking those opportunities to do good.
Yes, yeah. And you've got, as you said, you've got a powerful group of people that can make such an impact, not only in the industry, but across all the communities that they are connected with through their members and guests and the regions themselves.
Mm.
Looking at the bigger picture, how do you see the role of clubs evolving, not just as entertainment and hospitality venues, but as active agents of social change within the communities?
Mm. Look, clubs have always been more than just hospitality venues. They have been social hubs. And I think as social issues become more visible and our communities look for leadership, we're in a great position to step up and make, those changes, whether it's individually in our individual communities or united as an industry,
Yes.
whatever issues that, confront us or confront our communities, we're in a position, we have the spaces and the people and the connections to make that happen. And, connections with members, connections with politicians, connections with industry bodies.
Yes.
We have the power to create change and the space. And yeah, so I think that would be a constantly evolving space. And, in most areas, clubs are the biggest organisation in the community. So that we do have that responsibility to our communities to deliver that.
And to continue the growth. And it's something you've
Mm.
started the wheel turning back there in 2017, and it continues to grow and getting bigger and bigger. And as that as that wheel keeps turning, we're gathering more people in the community to understand and to speak out, but to know that they're there. Before we finish this conversation, and I've really enjoyed, having you on, Debbie, and sharing what you've done there at the RE and what you continue to do, both as an individual, but as also as the whole team and part of, that club's committee. Is there something else that you would like to share? Or perhaps is there, when will that website be out so that we can put a link in the show notes as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did just receive a first draft of that website today, and I would like to give credit to Dooley's Lidcombe who have funded that.
Mhm.
So we have some amazing big clubs that have the funds, really driving what we're doing.
Yes.
So we've got some work to do fleshing that out. There's a lot of information to go into that site. So hopefully early in the new year. We've also got subcommittees under our Clubs for Community committee. So there's a marketing committee and there's a learning and development. So we're going to get the marketing committee back together. We'll be establishing our social media platforms, and we will release it on our social media platforms and get communication out to clubs. So
Wonderful.
hopefully in the new year. Christmas is too close, and there's
Yes.
everyone is so busy and consumed at the moment. And
Yes.
as I said, a lot of this work is over and above, what we're already doing. So it will be early in the new year, and I'll be able to provide a link as soon as that is ready to go live.
Excellent. No, well, we'll certainly put that in, for the new year when the podcast comes out. Once again, Debbie, thank you so much, for joining me in today's episode, but also your commitment, not just to your fellow staff members, but to your community and that broader community. Because if somebody just makes one thing, then it makes a difference to so many, and that's, what you are doing on a daily basis. So thank you so much for your commitment.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you for having me on. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Bye bye.